I think so. Okay.
The red light there.
Yeah, it's on. Good morning, everyone. I'm Senator Jeff Timberlake. I represent District 22 in Androscoggin and Kennebec County. I'm going to speak. Kathleen's going to speak. Senator Davis and Senator Millett and anybody else who wants to, you'll be able to be available after we get done. I'll take questions and we will move forward. I want to thank everybody for joining us here today. I'm going to go a little off script on the beginning. As I come out here today, I realize that we're celebrating a little over 200 years in the state of Maine as I stand in front of this big dome up here. And I think of all of the things that happened and why the Constitution was written for Maine and the process was set up the way it is. And when you hear us talk today, you're going to hear us talk a little bit about that, and I want you to keep some of that in mind. So with that being said, I'm going to move on. We're here today to address your questions posed over the last 36 hours, since the Democrats and the governor have brought forth their plan to pass the biennial budget. Moving forward in this way stifles more than 500,000 Mainers by not engaging in a deliberative process. Yesterday we learned from a press release that the Maine legislature will be convening next Tuesday at the Augusta Civic Center to pass the latest budget proposal offered by the Democrats and the governor. Frankly, this is not what the people of the state of Maine expected from their elected officials. First and foremost, the biggest reason I cannot support this budget is that it does not include the $10,200 tax relief Republicans recently proposed for all working Mainers and essential workers. That I believe would have been included in this budget if this budget had taken its normal path. Secondly, added to this proposal's relief included a proposed tax increase. Why, I ask myself? With all the projected revenues coming into the state, and the last thing we need is a tax increase. According to the Legislative Law Library, I got that right here, this piece of paper right here, only 2 times in the last 70 years has a majority biennial budget been passed. Why? Because it's not the right thing to do. The whole system was designed so that everyone has a seat at the table in order to collaborate, deliberate, and negotiate. That is not happening now. Furthermore, at this time, we don't even know what will come from the Revenue Forecasting Committee that's projected to come out the 1st of May, end of April. The 16 joint standing committees have not had their usual report backs to the appropriation committees yet. This document is not a back to the basics budget that the Democrats claim. It is a $8.34 billion budget in addition to the $250 million supplemental budget that the governor just signed less than a week ago. These are just a few of the reasons that I cannot support this proposal at this time. You got to understand that on Monday afternoon, I got a telephone call, and we talked about, but I got handed this document as the budget. I don't think that's the right thing to do at this time. I'm now going to turn this over to Representative Kathleen Dillingham for her words. Thank you.
Good morning. I am House Republican Leader Kathleen Dillingham. Senator Timberlake has laid out our concerns with what has been proposed as a biennial budget, and I'd like to share my concerns over the process. Here we are on March 24th, having been presented 2 days ago with a 1-page document and the directive that this was going to be the budget that would be voted on next week. We could either vote with our counterparts, or they would go with Plan B. There isn't a single person here, either member or the press, that doesn't know that means they will be passing a majority budget. Last week, a member of the far-left extremist group, Maine's People Alliance, outlined exactly what is playing out here. It appears the majority Democrats and the governor are now taking direction from this special interest group. They've tried to couch it as a need to provide predictability in a time of COVID. Maine government hasn't provided predictability to the people of Maine since last March. But now here we are, and we're here to believe that this is of the utmost urgency. Where was the need for predictability when our businesses were being forced to close their doors, some forever, due to the ever-changing regulations not based on any statistical data? What about the predictability for our parents, students, and teachers on everything from school days to after-school activities? Where was the predictability for our citizens going months without unemployment compensation and desperate to know how they would feed their families and pay their bills? We all know the reasoning presented is a farce, and what is really driving this is the looming date of April 1st. Legislative Democrats and the Mills administration have no interest in negotiating with Republican members. Forcing through their sham of a proposal before April 1st allows them to do so with a simple majority vote. They will then adjourn the legislature, carry over unfinished pieces of legislation, and start the clock to allow their biennial to be in place for the next fiscal year. We then expect to be called back by the governor for an emergency session. Additional initiatives will be passed, supported with funds from projected revenues and monies from the Federal American Rescue Plan, all adding to the majority budget that will be passed next week. I am so disheartened by what is transpiring. The message that is being sent by legislative Democrats is that they believe there is no hope for the parties to negotiate in good faith. No hope for us to go through the messy, frustrating, and at times infuriating process of getting to a common place of where we can pass a bipartisan biennial budget, just as we did with the supplemental. A budget that was able to be passed in the Senate unanimously and with one dissenting voice in the House. That happened because the Speaker of the House and his members continued to be open to negotiations in order to land in a place that received the near unanimous vote, but now they apparently believe there is no hope. Instead, the institution behind us that I so admire is being dismantled in a heavy-handed fashion, forcing individuals into hyper-partisan positions and bringing Washington, D.C. style politics and posturing to the Maine legislature. Maine citizens who voted to have their districts represented by members standing here with me today are effectively being disenfranchised from participating in our representative style of government by having their elected official to Augusta silenced. Take a look at the map of the House districts in Maine. Majority Democrats and the governor are telling the voters in these red sections that their voice doesn't matter. This is not why I chose to seek the honor to represent my district in the Maine legislature. This is not good governance. This is partisan politics at its worst, and it's a grave disservice to the Maine people. Thank you. And I'll turn it to Senator Davis.
Good morning, everybody, friends, colleagues, members of the media. I have to tell you how disappointed I am that the Democrats have come forward and decided to force through a majority budget. The legislature here in Maine in the last few weeks worked very hard to create a budget that the Maine people can live with, and not only live with, but are proud of, supplemental. I've been told that numerous times back in my home district, how pleased they were that we were able to come together. The issues were sharp. The Republicans wanted full conformity to the tax issues, all of them. The Democrats had their issues they brought forward that were important to them. And we managed to work hard and come together by compromising, seeing the other person's issues, where they stood, and creating, as I said before, a supplemental budget that all of Maine can be proud of. Now, here it is, almost to the date, nearly to the day, when if a budget is going to go into effect prior to July 1st, we are being forced to either compromise with our own principles and pass something that none of us want to do without any input from us, Republicans. The governor has brought forth a budget, so-called. She says it's in the form of a supplemental. Now don't be fooled, folks. It's the real thing. It's a biennial budget. It's the real McCoy. And I want to ask my friend President Jackson, and folks, he is my friend. We've worked together over the years. We worked on what was called TransCan RX, which was a drug program to help Maine people, and we were successful. We worked on snowmobile issues. We worked on a number of things, and we always found a way to do that. And sometimes it involved compromise, and then sometimes it meant that one person had to move further than the other, but we did it. President Jackson, what do you want your legacy to be? Do you want it one of selfishness? Do you want it one of narrow-mindedness? One-upmanship? One where a person wants complete control of everything? Or, Mr. President, would you like to be remembered as one who reaches out and works hard and worked hard to create a uniform, bipartisan budget that all of Maine could be proud of? Not just a few, but all of Maine. And all of Maine would feel they participated in it. I hope, Mr. President, that you will join us and create the budget that I believe Maine people want to see us create. I now need to introduce my friend, Representative Soren Miller. And I want to thank you for putting up with me the last few months. He has forgotten more, I believe, this morning than I'll ever know about the budget. Ever. I have asked him endless questions, and he always has good answers for everything. It pleases me greatly. I would not be there, and Representative Timberlake, well, I think he would believe me. I would not have stayed there if it hadn't been for Representative Miller. So I am greatly in debt to him, and I thank him profusely. Representative Miller, you're up. Take that mask off.
Morning, everyone. I want to thank Senator Davis for those off-the-cuff remarks, some of which were true, but not all. And welcome all of you here from the media and the public at large. It demonstrates a lot to us who have committed our lives and our service in the legislature to do the right thing for the people of Maine. This is an evolving story. You're here, you're starting to dig into it. We first learned about it at noontime on the Monday of this week. So here we are, and I want to echo what Senator Davis said in terms of the working relationship that we as Republicans, 5 of us, have already established with our counterparts on the Appropriations and Financial Affairs Committee. Those 8 people, 5 of whom are new to the process, are honest and legitimate people who want to work together. And I think we've demonstrated, although it's been remotely, that we can work together and have done so, and look forward to doing the job that we were asked to do. It's interesting that here we are now more than 3 months into our service as members of the 130th, and the 13 of us have not yet all sat around the horseshoe anywhere and met each other and talked with each other person to person. All of it has been done remotely, and we have yet to cast a single vote on any line item that would appear in any biennial budget. This one, or the normal course, that would play out over the next 3 months. Last Wednesday, Senator Davis and I had a good meeting with the AFA chairs, Senator Green, Representative Hurst. We've been doing so weekly on the 11 o'clock hour on Wednesday of each week. They presented with our staff, our principal analyst from the Office of Fiscal and Program Review, a 3-month calendar, March, April, and May, looking at the report back schedule, the hearing from those report back committees, and the consideration of Q&A that we would always have with those committees that have done their work. We printed that out into the rest of this week, into April, and we picked a report out date for the biennial of May 27th. All of this has changed over the last weekend, and I think our leaders and my leader, Representative Dillingham, talked about a statement that was made on Friday of last week that seemed to turn the process into one of what I call a political roadmap to a majority budget, alleging that Republicans, by their nature and by their history, delving back into the 80s, were pro-shutdown. Nothing could be further from the truth, and nothing has even suggested that in the 3 years since Governor Mills took office in 2019. We can do a bipartisan budget. We can be able to work together, and I think we can do a much better job than what will start to unfold tomorrow. As Senator Timberlake talked about it, this is a budget that is incomplete, premature, full of holes, and lacking any feedback from the policy committees. The one-page game plan that we've been given, which will be the subject of some votes that will be taken tomorrow, does not reflect any of the feedback from the policy committees, some of which, the two biggest ones that have the most money involved in the general funds, the Health and Human Services Committee and the State and Local Government Committee, have not really even been shared with us in a walkthrough fashion. So it is premature and it lacks substance. I just took a look at the January 8th briefing from Governor Mills when she presented what she described as a no-drama 3-year budget recovery plan. And in it, and the narrative was interesting, the two leaders and appropriation members read through and flagged a lot of those items. 6 of them that were the governor's top priorities for the biennium are not reflected in the one-page handout that we will be looking at and presumably voting on tomorrow. So it is an incomplete budget, lacking, and I could get into more specifics, and happy to talk with any of you about those 6 areas because they are significant. They are pandemic related, if you want the truth. So here we are today and about to act tomorrow on a kind of an abbreviated outline of issues that bring money forward that can be spent, but not reflecting upon the bigger picture that lies ahead of us. Namely, we will have a revenue forecast, as Senator Timberlake referred, by the end of April. The actual Consensus Economic Forecasting Commission will be meeting next Tuesday. They will be looking at all of the factors that influence the economy now and going forward. Within that month of April, the revenue forecast will likely present us with an opportunity to look bigger picture and longer term with increased general fund revenues. Sometime between the middle of May and early to mid-June, the U.S. Department of Treasury will answer the questions and the interpretations of the so-called American Rescue Plan Act that was enacted while we were at the Civic Center, ironically, on the 10th of March. Those 2 items should allow us as legislators and as the 130th to set longer-term goals with big-picture priorities and with a more informed opportunity to utilize what will likely be substantially increased revenue. Our record of accomplishment in the 3 years since the governor was inaugurated includes a bipartisan biennial budget in June of 19, where Republicans reduced the spending by over 120 million, actually prioritized 75 million of property tax relief above and beyond her budget, and passed it with the 2/3 vote required, with no hint of a delay leading to a possible shutdown. A year ago on the St. Patrick's Day, we worked over the previous weekend, remotely and together, as ours indeed, and put together a supplemental budget that was passed unanimously. 2 weeks ago, actually on Thursday night, nearing the midnight hour, by a vote of 172-1, we passed the supplemental for FY '21. If that isn't evidence of an interest on the part of this